Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining the Forget Your Pizza Party podcast. My name is Chris, and as always, I'm joined by
Misty.
and this is episode 9. What is episode 9?
So episode 9 is Handoff Report.
Oh, the dreaded handoff report. I think we should start at the beginning. The beginning would be nursing school and clinicals. Let's start with that one. How was handoff report when you started off as a student nurse?
Handoff Report was kind of given to your,
Clinical instructor.
yeah, to clinical instructor. So it was a little different. You had to go through all of the medications and explain what each one was and all the side effects. And
Do you remember doing notebook cards for those?
oh my
You had
word.
to print off a medication list for the assigned patient that you had.
Uh-huh.
And then you had to do a notebook card. So you had to get that medication almanac. It was a massive 3 or 4 inch thick book. And you had to search the medication and then you had to do it for each one. So God forbid you get an old person with 50 meds. And then you had to give us like a small presentation over what you found on the notebook cards. And then your clinical instructor would critique you and make changes or tell you that you were wrong, even though you just wrote it down from the book.
And then the care plans.
And then the care plans. Yeah, the care plans.
Oh, for all you nurses, when you graduate and you go and you do a care plan as a nurse, a real nurse, you're gonna love it.
Hey, pro tip for all you nursing students, everybody's a fall risk
That's true.
and everybody's in pain.
That's true.
So fall risk and pain. And you'll never go wrong. Now, they may pick up on the pattern, but you might need to switch some things up a little bit by getting new things for your fall care plan or new things for your pain care plan. But the basic structure of it is fall risk and pain.
Yeah, don't be that nurse that puts down about 15 different things.
I had one of those in my group.
Oh,
I
we always
hated
had it. Always.
Oh, and then when you're going through your care plan, that same individual would always raise their hand and be like, "But could it be this?" And in reality, care plans don't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
No, they really don't.
No, it's for the hospital and their
It's for their reimbursement and some other things, but care plans for us, listen, fall risk is it, and pain. You can do some other ones, but those are the two that I always fall back on. Even now, we have to do care plans even now. But the handoff evolved. So that was LPN and mainly LPN course. You're working in assisted living and skilled nursing facilities. But then when you transition to the RN program, the handoff report evolves.
a little bit.
Yeah,
You
because
still report off to your
you do.
instructor.
But if you do your clinical rotations in a hospital,
You're listening to report. You're not always handing it off, though.
no, but towards the end of your curriculum through your course, your ADN,
Yeah, when you get to your final, what is it? The
final 2 sessions or quarters or whatever, we were doing a mock handoff report to the nurse. And you could always tell that they were kind of visibly frustrated because they've got so much to do. And you're sitting there trying to give them a report on a patient, like you're taking a mock assignment. And then they have to go and do the real handoff report with their oncoming colleague. And I always felt like we were a burden to them, but you needed to learn the process.
yeah, and it is a process.
What is one thing that most nurses, I don't know about nowadays, I've been so far removed from doing handoff. What about the brains?
The brain. Oh, the charting brain.
Yeah.
I never use that.
Your little grid system. Well, I don't either, but we're seasoned nurses. But
We had the brain, hated the brain. I
for
did
the,
my own thing.
for those of you that don't know what the brain is, it's that sheet of paper that some of your older nurses may use.
Oh, no. In charting, there's in the Epic, there's an actual brain.
They call it the brain?
Yeah, it was
Oh
the
my
brain.
God. That's so ridiculous. I just hear.
That's what I thought you were talking about.
No, I'm talking about like the sheet of paper that people would do their assignment on so they could keep track of all the crap they had to do during those shift.
Yeah, that's just organization.
Yeah.
Hey, I had little tiny sheets that I would write stuff down, and I had a very specific place.
Well, and I had very specific areas for each specific thing. So IVs, pain meds, diseases, labs,
history.
the little squiggly little chevrons with the line, and then you could do your potassium and sodium and all that.
And then just so you know, those multicolored pens are great because if you are back to back to back, all you have to do is just use a different color the next day.
That's right. And We do some videos on you do not touch a nurse's pen.
Never.
That is a no-go.
That is the sin of all sins.
That's like putting your hand in a lion's cage and expecting not to get bit. You're going to get bit.
That and a nurse's stethoscope.
Stethoscopes, yeah. You don't take off with a stethoscope. You always bring it back, and you always clean it.
Always.
Yes, I've seen doctors take the stethoscopes and they just hand it back, and you know damn well they never cleaned their ear gunk off of it. This is nasty. So what was it like, or if you remember, doing your first handoff report during onboarding and orientation?
Oh man, I was scared to death. I was nervous. You can have everything written down, but just getting the flow of it, it was terrible.
It was
It
terrible.
was so unorganized. I was all over the place.
Well, and then you don't know everybody on the unit. So if
Mhm.
you have a multi-nurse handoff assignment where they're getting maybe one patient, let's say you have like where I worked, you had 8 patients and each nurse is taking 1 to 3, you might be giving 4 different handoff reports depending
Mhm.
on the staffing. So, and then you don't know the nurses. Or my favorite was waiting for them to get done and then forgetting what you wanted to tell them during the report
Mhm.
initially when you're getting started.
Yeah. And I totally forgot what I was going to say. Hold on.
And this happens too. This is called you need to have your brain right
Hold
here.
on. Hold on. No, what I
See,
was
this
going to
is-
say
this
is there's
this is why
different
you write
when
stuff down,
when
right?
you talk about different types of nursing. Shut up. When you talk about different types of nurses, and you say that you don't know what nurse you're going to be giving a report to. That is so true. There's nurses that want every single detail, and
Oh
you're
my
like,
God.
I don't have time to sit
Let's
here
go,
and give
like,
you every
go look in
history,
the chart.
every lab, everything you need to know. Go look it up. Then you have nurses that barely want to know anything.
They're
which
just
is,
like FAFO.
yeah, whatever.
They don't care.
Yeah.
My favorite was that detail-oriented nurse, and they're back the next night, and they want the same
Full
exact damn
report.
details that they just gave you back to them. And all you're like is nothing's changed. No new meds. All the IVs are running. The conditions haven't changed. Vital signs are stable. Like, what more do you want? Well, what did they have for breakfast?
Oh, the worst though is when they come back or you come back in and they're giving you report back. They don't want to give you full report.
No, they want it. They want it as
In and out.
Cliff Notes version as they can give you. And you're like, whoa, 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 wait a second. I'm going to just be an a-hole and I'm going to make you tell me every damn detail that went on during your shift.
Mhm.
Even though it's night shift, I'm going to, like, what do they do at 3 a.m.? What do they do at 3:30? What do they do at 4:30? I want to know everything by the half hour.
Did they have that bowel movement?
I don't know. But did you chart on it? Well, you can look in the chart. No, I can't. I need to know it right now in case the doctor calls because we need to have accurate intake and output. One of the other things was during handoff was involvement. That was also usually when management decided to feel like they needed to have some capacity of authoritative structure and come in and just call everybody right then and there when you're trying to give report to have a meeting.
To have a meeting, or they would come around and make sure you're doing bedside report. Do you remember the triangle?
I don't think.
Were you there when you had to do the
No.
triangle?
What's the triangle?
So the triangle is the patient and then the nurses at the two ends of
Oh,
the bed.
Jesus Christ.
You were including your patient.
It's like a kumbaya in the hospital.
Yeah, I'm dead serious. And they would come around and make sure you were doing this triangle thing. It was
So bedside report wasn't enough. You had to do like one had to flank one side and one had to flank the other.
yes, yeah.
So you'd have
And
like
then your
eye
patient's
contact
in
with
the
the
middle,
patient.
and then that way your patient could be included in
Oh
the
my
handoff
God,
report.
I'm so glad I
Which
left.
let me tell you is not fun. Especially when you have family in there. There's just some things that you cannot talk about at the bedside.
Yes, like they're dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, your patient's
What you
dying.
really want to say.
Yep. Yeah. Or, your patient's is a, you know what, and you want to tell them to load down on their pain management schedule, even though they're sitting there playing on their iPad when it's due. Was that, when they did that, did they also incorporate the whiteboard during that time? Like you had to update the whiteboard and everything during that time?
Yeah, together.
Okay, so for all of you out there that don't know, there's a board, a communication board in most of these patient rooms in the hospital. They don't usually have them in skilled nursing facilities. They may or may not have them in LTACs. They definitely don't have them in
They might
assisted living.
they
What they would do is you would put your name, the date, which really was awesome when you're trying to do alert and oriented questions, because then they could just look up at the damn board. The date, your name, the aide's name if you had one, and then you had to put up all of their pain meds and the last time they were given and when they could get them again. So that was really great for all the pain med seekers, because they could set their watch or their phone or whatever by what you had up on the board. And then if you didn't do it, management would come around, and I believe you got a warning. You got a few warnings, and then they would start writing you up.
Well, yeah. Well, I remember when I was newer in the CCU, night shift, we audited each other. So
Yeah.
you were given a particular nurse for the night, and then you had to basically follow that nurse and make sure that they were doing their whiteboard handoffs.
You're turning in your
So
colleagues.
horrible. Yeah, it was bad.
Didn't the Germans do that back in the day?
I don't know.
You had to turn it. You turned in citizens that were not, against the Führer.
Maybe.
Anyway, so that, and then did you have to do the color coordination with the dry erase markers? So like day shift had like a color and night shift had a color.
No.
So the managers could walk by and they could tell by the color whether the board was updated or not.
Oh, that's kind of brilliant.
Yeah. One of our managers implemented that, and I actually thought that was pretty sly. So they could do a real quick check. I think day shift was like the blue dry erase and night shift was black. But here's the thing. Every once in a while, they would shift the colors. They would go green or red, depending. So they did that as a quick audit of because you can't, on some units, you may have 30 rooms to go into. And so you need a quick way to walk around within maybe 7-8 minutes to see if your nurses are doing what they're supposed to. I also, in the hospital systems, they had the Voiceras with the location tags.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You could stand in the hallway and do a report. You could, at one point, you could get away with doing at the door frame.
But then they got that lighting system.
But then they upgraded the lighting system because, nurses find ways around everything. And because we're like MacGyvers of healthcare. And so the nurses, I even knew people that would take their Voiceras off and slide them into a room to get the call light to drop.
Or your badge.
Or the badge.
Because you run in there 50
I forgot about the RFD tags on the badges.
Yeah. You just slide it in there and the lights would go off.
Yep. So that you could, because you had at our hospital system that we worked at, you had to get a call light within a minute. It was 1 minute. So, and that's not always practical if you're understaffed. So, the same management that wants you to provide great patient services will also understaff you and then nail you because you're understaffed when you can't get to a call light within a minute.
Oh, and trust me, because if you didn't get that call light within that minute, that stupid alarm would just go even faster.
Yep.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yep. And then they did an all unit.
Oh,
so if you didn't get it within, I think the cutoff was like 3 or 4 minutes. So if that call light ended up not getting answered, so then it would, at the 2 minute, it would start blinking faster and the light would get, or the alarm would get louder. And then at the 3 or 4 minute mark, it would do an all floor Voicera. Your patient in room 528 has, or it needs assistance, or whatever the default message was. But you only have 7 nurses or 8 nurses for 50 patients. That thing was going off constantly.
And you're trying to keep your other patients from falling.
Yeah, and they would track, so your rooms were assigned to you. So when you do handoff, the unit secretaries would load your patient assignment into the computer system. And then your trackers would be assigned to you permanently.
And then you would have a partner to your tracker.
And then you would have a backup to your tracker. So if you didn't get the call out, your partner would get buzzed. And then, it was...
Things were going off all the time.
Yep, especially during handoff. So you're trying to give handoff to these nurses, and the hospital aides are also doing report. And then all these call lights are going off, and everybody's getting dinged. So the oncoming shift would be getting dinged, and the outgoing staff members would get dinged. And in the meantime, you're trying to deal with all these alarms, go in and deal with handoff, and also try to get these call lights answered.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
How was your report? Getting a report from your manager? and a manager,
When
assistant
they
manager,
when
manager.
they came into when they came into staff,
Yeah.
they didn't know what the hell they were doing. It was terrible. Some of the managers were like, "Well, I think I did this at this time." And so, like, one of them was, it almost felt like government time. She was so slow that we're not in your office. You know, you can't just sit up with your feet up and having a cup of coffee and talk like tortoise in the hare, and you're the tortoise and you're just sitting there like, "Oh yeah, I got this stuff." No, I need to know now. You've got 2 minutes per patient. Let's go. And they had no idea. Or the one of the most fun things to watch was them trying to operate a Pyxis system.
Yeah.
That was just magical because they had no idea. So if you get a patient with IV, one, they didn't know where the IV sets were. So that was a challenge to them. They forgot how to spike them, or if it was a secondary mixture that you had to mix in with the saline and then
They were
mix it and hang it.
horrible with IVs too.
They were terrible with IVs. They were pretty much useless. Yeah. I would have, when we had an assistant manager come in, there were some that were really, really great
Mhm.
and they could do their thing. But then you had some assistant managers that had been assistant managers for like 15 years and only rarely came in staff, and for good reason, because they were terrible.
What another thing that was bad is our assistant managers normally were our charge nurses unless they weren't there.
And they always give themselves the best assignment.
Oh, absolutely.
100, no
No
admits,
admits, no
ever,
discharges.
no discharges, and
Um,
the most walkie-talkie patients.
yeah. And then, so not only were you giving or getting report from them, but you were having to give or get report on the whole unit too from
Yeah.
them. It was horrible sometimes.
Yep. And then the other thing, they never helped out with their patient care. They never helped out. They would wait on the STNAs or PCNAs to actually go and do all their work for them.
Oh, yeah.
I think there were a couple assistant managers that would come out and help, and they were really team players. But a vast majority of them were terrible.
Oh, and then sometimes they would just leave the floor and they'd be gone, and you're literally taking care of their patients.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
You're
had
like,
that happen
it's
a few
like in
times.
handoff report, where did that come in that I was going to be taking my 7-patient assignment and your 7-patient assignment? Like, where the hell did you go?
Yeah, and then they're, "Oh, I'm sorry. We had a meeting," or, "Oh, I'm sorry. I had to deal with this situation." Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
"Oh,
But
by the way, you're getting the next patient. There's an MA coming."
mhm.
"Oh, thanks. Now that I'm behind because I was trying to keep your patients caught up." Yeah.
You didn't want to let patients sink, but
No.
at the same time, you kind of wanted them to bear the brunt of any of the frustration and anger that the patients brought to your attention because they weren't there. And so it was a fine line because you didn't want to have any harm come to their patients. And sometimes you had some of those patients had been there for a while. You had them on a previous shift.
Mhm.
So you had a good rapport with them, and you still don't want anything to happen to them, even if you don't have them as a previous shift assignment. But you also wanted the managers to kind of bear the brunt of whatever anger or frustration these people have because you're not taking care of them. We're going to change pace. What is one thing that you saw as we became more seasoned nurses that you saw that as a preceptor,
Mm.
when you had new grads come in, that you saw that was common or that you had to correct or that you had to train them on?
So, I was very strategic when I was precepting. I had a very specific sheet, and it's actually one that I took. I think you helped me until I went to the CCU, and then I had to change it a little for there. But it was a very specific sheet that you literally could just follow right along. Everything was positioned in a certain place on this sheet for the beginning of report and how it should flow.
Yeah.
So my expectation was for every person that I trained, they were to follow this sheet.
Mhm.
So they didn't, though.
No.
Some of them would be like, "Well, I don't need that." Okay, well, yeah, you do, because I mean, it even checked off like, did you do your in the CCU when somebody had a Foley, you were every hour you were getting an I&O.
Yeah.
So did you do your I&O? And it was literally mapped out hourly
So
by the hour.
right. So when I did my sheet, I designed it specifically how Epic flowed.
Yeah.
Because when I trained, I wanted them to develop a structure visually on one sheet so that when they got on Epic, when they went to the tabs, each tab correlated to a section. It would coordinate to a section that they had. So as they're learning Epic, they could go to the page that they had on this sheet and it would
Yeah.
give them the appropriate information at that spot
Some
at
of
that moment.
the most missed information though were like turns, hourly checks. Did you do your hourly eyes and nose? Did you do your 2 o'clock eyes and nose during in the middle of the day? Did you do them at the end of the shift before you check out? Did you change all your bags for your next nurse? Because you never want to leave an empty bag or them without a bag of whatever you're running.
Yeah.
That was just a huge slap in the face to the next nurse.
Yeah.
It's just etiquette,
Yeah.
nurse etiquette. But the biggest thing was them keeping track on that paper and then putting it into the computer.
Right.
And then when they would go to give report, it's like, okay, you start here. This is how you give report. It goes with the S bar if you want to talk about the S bar. But some of them would be like, I don't need that. But yeah, you do because your report sucks. You're not at a point where you can walk up to the bedside and just give report like I can. You need that paper. That is your brain. And I stressed it sometimes. Sometimes I would use it on my really, really critical patients because you don't have the time to chart. And a lot of times you're at the end of your shift trying to go back and do all this charting.
Right.
So that's your brain.
And for all you new grad RNs, and I forget the study, but it's now probably about a decade old, but they studied how many tasks nurses do in a shift, and it hovers anywhere between 300 and 500 tasks. And so you multiply that by each patient. There's no human way possible to remember that many tasks, that many situations, that many things that you've done. So by writing it down, you free up your brain from having to remember it, but it also gives you a history in case what hits the fan and you have to go back and provide a chain of custody on anything, a chain of assessment, a chain of condition, whatever it is on your patient. And so you will be able to do a rundown, even if you just make like abbreviations and put the time, it'll give you a chronological ability to recount that to a provider, to another nurse during report. If there's a critical incident, it may or may not cover your ass, depending on how well you actually chart on that piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And there are going to be times when you're going to have really terrible shifts. You're not going to be able to sit down and chart in the EMR, which for all you out there, EMR is electronic medical record. You're not going to have time to chart in it. So you're going to have to use that to outline what you did during that shift.
And let me tell you, there's some nurses that really like those nursing notes. They will literally give you a play-by-play every hour in that nursing note. No, don't even waste your time. The only time I ever wrote a nursing note was if there was a critical situation that happened and it was to cover my ass, basically. But you don't have time to sit there and write hour by hour what you did. Oh, patient sleeping comfortably.
No.
Oh, rounded. Patient need to go to the bathroom. Assisted patient to the bathroom. One assist back to bed. Patient placed in bed. Call light and reach. Rails up. No.
See,
You don't need that. That doesn't tell me anything.
See, for all you overachiever nurses out there, listen, Epic has templates and smart phrases.
Mhm.
So you can smart phrase whatever you want. I always charted every 2 hours, but I had a whole bunch of smart phrases. I could get my charting done in maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, I could do mine in 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
But if you're charting correctly the way you should be, then you shouldn't need to write a full-on nursing.
No,
like,
I only did that when
when it's critical.
I only did that when we had a rapid or a code or an aggressive patient or an aggressive
Some type of event.
or an aggressive family member or an aggressive doc. Truth be told, some of the docs are terrible
Mhm.
and you have to insulate yourself from them because they will throw you under in a heartbeat.
Up
I actually put
or calls out.
every single call out to a provider
Yeah.
and every single conversation and every single order. That was something that even if I wrote it down on the paper, I always went back and charted it. That was
Mhm.
that was 100% every time I talked to any type of specialist, anybody at the provider level, I always documented. I always documented the phone calls, the missed phone calls, the messages, to show that I made attempts to get a hold of this individual. Again, as an element to cover your ass and insulate you legally.
You had to do that with pharmacy too.
Had to do that with pharmacy, which was unusual. Pharmacy was really, really good, but they even released some orders that you're just like, no, this is not right. And had to call them back. But my thing is, I got out of that particular part of healthcare before the chat system started kicking in.
Mm-hmm.
So now some of these electronic medical records have
Secure chats.
secure chats, and secure chat goes right into the patient's note.
Does it?
Yeah, you have to be very careful with secure chat. Now, if it's to provider, but if it's anything patient oriented, unless it says specifically that it is not recorded, everything is recorded. It has to state that this conversation is not a permanent part of the medical
I didn't
record.
realize it went right into the medical record because we had this conversation at work because at outpatient, when we get a critical in, we have to not only send high priority notes, but we also have to contact that doctor, and secure chat's one way that we do it.
So it may not be fully part of the my chart that the patient can see, but I would be very cautious to anybody out there that if you're communicating on those secure chats, that you
Keep it appropriate.
keep it appropriate, and you make sure 100% that you have some form of documentation saying that that is not going into the patient's permanent record.
Although, so that's an interesting question because you have your event reports that aren't part of the medical record and you never speak of those internal event reports. So I brought it up to my manager. I was like, okay, so we don't speak about event reports, but yeah, I'm sending a secure chat on a critical or urgent situation. Is that part of, do you state that in your note?
See, I would be very cautious with that because unless you know for sure, and that, so like when we were up at our facility in Cleveland, it would say that this chat is not a part of it would have a disclaimer before you could start using the chat.
I'll have to
So
look.
it would say something like, this chat is not part of the patient's permanent record, but it has to state it. If it doesn't, then you have to assume that it is part of the patient's record.
Well, and then I was like, how do I show proof that I actually made contact with the doctor this way? Just copy and paste it out of the secure chat into your note. And I'm like,
See,
but is that considered more of an internal thing?
I know this is not part of our handoff report,
But it kind of is.
that's one of those, like, if you're trying to get information through secure chat, I would be very, very cautious. I'm more overly focused on legality of things. As Misty will tell you if we ever met in person.
Well,
I-
that's why I questioned it.
I would say that it has to state it in some sort of capacity that this is not a permanent part of the patient's medical record. If it does not state it clearly, or you don't have any documentation that states that it is not part of the patient's permanent record, then you have to make the assumption, unfortunately, that it is part of the patient's permanent record. It may not be the part of the record that is released to my chart, but it may be documented in a whole separate category that can be admissible in a court case. So I would be very, very cautious about using any of that unless you have seen a disclaimer or some sort of identifier on that chat line that states that it is not part of a patient's permanent record.
Oh, interesting.
So anyway, happy holidays, everybody. I know it's a little late, but Merry Christmas. We took a week off.
Happy New Year.
And then by the time this posts, Happy New Year. Everybody out there, this is a rough stretch of 2 weeks. Get through New Year's, get home safe to your families, enjoy what part of the holiday that you can. Remember, you are more than your job. You are replaceable at work, but you are not replaceable at home. Work on your mental health. It's one of the best gifts you'll ever give to yourself.
Just everybody have a safe and happy New Year and go Bucks.
That's right. All you people out there, Buckeye, we're representing Buckeyes. So we represent Ohio State. Go Buckeyes.
Go Bucks.
They're going to get another natty.
They better.
And then we'll get to rub it in Michigan's face again.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Be safe. Till next time.
Till the next time.
Bye now.
care, heroes on the grind, underappreciated. Weekend comes, but the pizza's not celebrated. Managers order, they just can't seem to get it right. We gather round, but we're ready for a bite tonight. No toppings, no love, cold slices on our plate. Pizza party, let the podcast begin. Healthcare warriors, let the laughter spin. Through terrible toppings and grease that we dread, we'll keep this conversation alive instead. Chit chat, laughter, it's our weekly unwind. But this cardboard crust feels like a sinister sign. Heartfelt stories wrapped in cheesy regret. As workers unite, over this pizza we fret. A slice of happiness, more like a slice of pain.